Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryan Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti 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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Chaiva Tato Jayamudirayet. Very good. Welcome back. We continue our study of we're now in the second book, the Sabha Parva of the Mahabharata, and we're, as you know, we're choosing selected passages that are, I think, highly instructive for all of us as students of Vedanta. Here, just to set the stage for today's discussion, we are a little bit like being a peeking Tom when you're kind of like observing somebody else's conversation. You're not supposed to do that, but that's what we're doing. We are observing a discussion taking place in the palace between King Dhritarashtra, his oldest son, Duryodhana, and Shakuni. And just to very quickly recap what we saw in our last class, Shakuni is highly manipulative, and here's how he's going to do this manipulation. He tells Dhritarashtra, look at your poor son. Look how miserable he is. Look how depressed he is. Look how pale and sick he is. The implication, unspoken, is this: what kind of father are you to allow your son to be in this kind of condition? And Duryodhana, of course, asks, my son, what's wrong? What's going on? And Duryodhana, as we say in American English, he unloads. What does he say? Two things. One is, the bottom line is, he's sad, depressed, sick, and anxious because he looks at his eldest cousin, Yudhishthira, who has just concluded the performance of this Rajasuya Yajna, this ritual, a ritual which concludes with all the neighboring kingdoms sending very costly tributes, gifts to Yudhishthira. So Yudhishthira has just become incredibly wealthy as a result of these gifts coming from all the neighboring kingdoms as part of that Rajasuya Yajna. And Duryodhana observes that and is intensely jealous, so jealous it makes him physically sick. By the way, modern psychoanalysis, modern psychology, which tells us that psychosomatic illnesses are real illnesses. That was quite clearly understood in ancient times as well. So Duryodhana is literally, physically ill as a result of his intense jealousy towards Yudhishthira. And then we saw, and it was a very fascinating discussion we had in the last class, where Duryodhana justified his jealousy and ill feelings towards Yudhishthira, justified it with his personal philosophy. What is his personal philosophy? That statement still sticks in my head. He says, contentment is the enemy of success. What a dangerous statement. It's dangerous because there's some truth in that. But if you simply grasp onto that statement, contentment is an enemy of success. If you're content, you just relax and enjoy yourself. You won't go out there and beat the pavement, as they say. But here's the problem with that statement. Success is for what sake? There's some perverted logic in that statement. He says, contentment is the enemy of success But now, I didn't say this last class, so let me turn it around. And I would say, which is the teachings of Vedanta would say, that success is for the sake of contentment. Right? Success is for the sake of contentment. So then he said contentment is the enemy of success. Wait a minute, if you're already content, that success has already done its job. Right? Do you see how his logic is perverted? On the surface, it sounds really compelling. Contentment is the enemy of success. If you're really... They even use this term in big businesses. They say you have to be really hungry for success, and then you'll strive very hard. They're absolutely correct. If you're really hungry for success, you'll try harder. Absolutely true. But what is it that we're ultimately after in life? We had a lengthy discussion that our ultimate goal is contentment. And Duryodhana is clueless about that. Duryodhana doesn't understand what is truly valuable in life. Duryodhana makes the same mistake that many people make. They think that wealth and fame and power are the most important things in life. And we discussed this at length in the last class. I'll just summarize it by saying that there's no doubt that there's some importance to wealth and perhaps even to the others. But success and wealth and all of that is ultimately for the sake of your inner peace and contentment. And we should be very clear about what the ultimate goal is, about what is truly valuable in life. And mere wealth and power is not valuable, and we discussed at some length. You can be really wealthy and really powerful and really miserable. We know that well. So, okay, enough said. So with that introduction, let us pick up the thread where we left off. This is in the middle of chapter 45, where Duryodhana says, Duryodhana vacha Duryodhana Hayam utsahate rajan Hayam utsahate Shreyam ahartumakshvata Shreyam ahartumaksh Dyutena pandu putrasya Dyutena pandu Tananugnatam arhasi Tananugnatam. So after Shakuni, the end of the last class, Shakuni made his sales pitch, his proposal. He proposed to conduct a dice game, to invite Yudhishthira to this dice game. Shakuni said that he is the best dice player in the country, and according to Shakuni, Yudhishthira is very fond of playing dice, but doesn't know how to play well at all. So this is a setup. So Shakuni says, let us invite Yudhishthira to this dice game, and then Duryodhana at that point tells his father. Duryodhana says, he, meaning Shakuni, I am utsahate rajan. Rajan, O king, I am utsahate. He is capable. Shakuni is capable. Is capable what? Ahartum. He's capable of stealing Shreyam, wealth. He's capable of winning the wealth that Yudhishthira has acquired. He is capable of winning it through the dice game. Why? He is Akshavit. That very skillful dice player, Shakuni uncle, as you might say, he. So in modern times we speak like that. In Sanskrit, that kind of expression is not there, but in modern English we speak like that. Anyway, Duryodhana says his uncle Shakuni is so skillful at playing dice that he's absolutely capable of winning that wealth that Yudhishthira has acquired, Dyutena, through playing dice, through a dice game, Pandu Putrasya, with the son of Pandu, referring specifically to Yudhishthira. So, in a dice game with Yudhishthira, Shakuni is capable of winning, of gaining all of that money, all of that wealth, and then Duryodhana requests his father, Tat anugnatum arhasi. Tat, that dice game, anugnatum, permission, arhasi, you should grant. You should grant permission for Yudhishthira to be invited for a dice game with Shakuni. And to which Dhritarashtra replies, Dhritarashtra vacha, Dhritarashtra kshatta mantri mahaprajnaha, kshatta mantri maha stito yasyami shasane, stito yasya tena sangam yavetsyami, tena sangam karyasyasya vinishchayam, karyasyasya vinishchayam. So Dhritarashtra doesn't immediately say, okay. In fact, he says, I want to consult my brother Vidura. Vidura, who here is called Kshatta. Kshatta, actually, Kshatra is the underlined form. It means the son of a servant. Do you remember how the three were born? Pandu, Dhritarashtra, and Vidura. So through Vyasa, with Ambika, was born Dhritarashtra. Through Vyasa, with I think Ambalika, was born Pandu. And through Vyasa, with their maid, was born Vidura. So Vidura, the word Vidura literally means the wise one. Very beautiful name. Vidura, the wise one. Kshatta is not such a nice name, right? Son of a maid. It's kind of a demeaning word. But that's one of his names, as it were. So Kshatta means Vidura, the son of the maid. He is mantri. He is my advisor. His brother. He is his brother. He is also advisor. Brother, half-brother, I don't know how you want. Half-brother, I suppose we would say, not brother, but half-brother, more accurately. And that Vidura, who is a mantri, his advisor, his minister, he is Mahaprajnaha, extremely wise. And he is. He is in the entire epic, he is one of the wisest characters. And here Dhritarashtra says, Yasyami stitaha shasane. Yasya stitaha asmi shasane. Yasya shasane. In his instruction, for the instructions of Vidura, asmi stitaha. I am fixed in his instructions, but what it means, of course, is I depend on his guidance. That's what it means. I depend on his guidance. So my half-brother, Vidura, is very wise. He's my advisor. I depend on his guidance. Tena samgamya, and having consulted with him, after consulting with Vidura, vetsyami, I will know what? Asya karyasya vinishchayam. I will know what is to be done. I will know the right decision, vinishchayam. I'll know the right thing to do, asya karyasya, with regard to this matter of whether or not Yudhishthira should be called for a dice game to be organized by Shakuni. So he says, instead of telling his son Duryodhana, okay, he says, let me consult my half-brother Vidura and get his advice. What do you think will be Duryodhana's response? Duryodhana vacha, Duryodhana Nivartayashyati tvasau, nivartayashyati tva, yadikshatta sameshyati, yadikshatta same. Nivritte tvai rajendra, nivritte tvai rajendra, marishyeham asamshayam, marishyeham. Nivartayashyati to asau. Asau, that one. Vidura, what will he do? Tat, but, to, but. Interesting to start a sentence with but. Very common, right? You're telling somebody, you should really do this or that or the other thing, and a person replies, but. And that's Duryodhana's response, that to asau. To means but. But asau, he, Vidura, nivartayashyati. For our Sanskrit students, future and causal. He will cause you to desist. He will cause you to turn away from this proposal. He will cause you, Vidura, will cause you, Dhritarashtra, to reject Shakuni's proposal. Now, interesting. Duryodhana knows in advance that Vidura will reject this. How is it that Duryodhana knows in advance? Because Duryodhana knows it's adharmic, and Duryodhana knows that Vidura will always advise on the side of dharma. He knows that very clearly. But here we see a good example of the effective advisors. Who is giving advice to Duryodhana? Shakuni. Bad news. So you should always choose the right advisor. You can imagine, like our president in Washington, if his cabinet members are misguided, then he's going to get all kinds of bad advice and make terrible decisions. Fortunately, it appears that he's got really good cabinet members, really good advisors, and that helps him make good decisions. So if your advisors are highly skillful and intelligent and ethical and moral, you're more likely to get good advice. And if the opposite is true, as is in the case of Shakuni, Shakuni, who we hand it to Shakuni, he's intelligent, but he's certainly unethical. He's not guided by principles of dharma and morality. So with that kind of advice from Shakuni, we know that Duryodhana is going to make bad decisions. And interesting contrast. Who is Dhritarashtra's main advisor? Not Shakuni. Vidura. The very wise, ethical one, dharmic one, Vidura. Now you would think that Dhritarashtra was such an excellent advisor, he'd be in really good shape. Well, there's one problem, and that is you have to be able to follow the guidance of your advisors. Dhritarashtra's blindness is symbolic of his inability to see the truth of what is told to him. It's symbolism. He's blind from birth. Complicated story about that. Remember, Ambika closes her eyes when Vyasa comes? I'm not going to tell all these detailed stories, but because she closed those of you who know the story well, she closed his eyes, therefore he was born. And then the story goes on that Ambika tells Ambalika, whatever you do, don't close your eyes. So she forces to keep her eyes open when then Vyasa comes. And Vyasa, of course, is not a very pleasant character to look at. He's very dark in color, and he lives in a forest, and he's all full of leaves and dirt and all of that. So she forces herself to keep her eyes open. Keeping her eyes open, she becomes very frightened and pale. Pandu means pale. Anyway, sorry, complete aside. If you don't know the details of the story, forget it. It just doesn't make any difference. Just very elaborate story. Anyway. So, Where did I get off on that detour? Dhritarashtra's blindness is symbolic of his inability to see the difference between right and wrong. So even when Vidura gives him good advice, he cannot see the wisdom, not literally, figuratively. He cannot see the wisdom in that advice, and so this is a problem. Duryodhana's got a very corrupt advisor. We know what to expect. Dhritarashtra has a very skillful advisor in Vidura, but he's incapable of taking that advice, so this is where the problem comes. So, Dhritarashtra says, Tena sangamya, having met with Vidura, vetsyami nishchitam, I will know what is to be done, karyasya asya. With regard to the situation, with regard to the dice game, I will know what is... I just backed up, sorry. So we're talking about this. So Duryodhana complains that if you talk to Vidura, he will change your mind. And Duryodhana knows this very well. Then he says, look at this. He says, yadi, if kshatta sameshyati, if Vidura comes and meets with you, Nivritte Tvai Rajendra, Raja Indra, O greatest of kings. Raja Indra, Rajendra, O greatest of kings. If Vidura, here called Kshatta, son of the maid, if he comes and meets with you, and Nivritte Tvai, if he changes your mind, then what? Duryodhana says, Aham Marishye, I will kill myself samshayam, without doubt. If you meet with Vidura, he will certainly change your mind about this and dissuade you from inviting Yudhishthira for the dice game with Shakuni. He says, if that happens, I'm going to kill myself. What horrible emotional manipulation. And let's talk about this a little bit. Manipulation of any kind, manipulation is a form of himsa. Let's be very clear about this. Manipulation is himsa. Forcing someone to do anything can be considered himsa. Why? You deprive that person of freely choosing. Can Dhritarashtra freely choose his course of action when his son is threatening to kill himself? So Duryodhana deprives his father from the freedom to choose whatever course of action he thinks best. This is manipulation. It is harmful. Any kind of manipulation, however subtle it is, and even if it's well intended. And I have to share this with you because many years ago, Puja Swami Tadatmananda made a really bold statement based on this principle. He said, conversion, referring to the Christian presence in India, converting Hindus into Christianity, Puja Swamiji said boldly, conversion is violence. And what we're saying the same thing here. Manipulation is himsa. Conversion is violence. Why is conversion violence? Through that process of conversion, you deprive them of their whole cultural background. You uproot those Hindus from their own culture. You thrust them into a foreign, unnatural culture. You do great harm to them, culture, not physically. And of course the Christians would actually respond by, but we're improving the quality of their life. How? By giving them money, perhaps making education available. No doubt that is improving the physical quality of their life, but at the same time they're introducing a tremendous amount of suffering by uprooting these people from their own culture and sometimes uprooting them from their families. Not infrequently, families are split apart through conversion. When one or more family members convert and the others do not convert, it tears families apart. Clearly, conversion is violence. Conversion is most clearly a form of manipulation. Do these Hindus want to convert on... Who comes to whom? Do the Hindus come to the Christians and say, I want to convert? When will that happen? It won't happen. It's the other way around. The manipulator comes to the manipulated. That's the essence of it. So, let's just see that. This is an extreme case of manipulation, threatening his own suicide. Duryodhana makes it very, very compelling and basically deprives Dhritarashtra of any chance of doing anything at all. There are many kinds of more subtle manipulation that everyone does. Now, I would just request you to reflect on this. It is so commonly done, especially in families, where one family member will exert some kind of emotional pressure on another family member. This happens all the time. I'd like to suggest that that's a form of himsa. Why should you push the family member if they're unwilling or uncooperative? There's a reason for that, right? If they're unwilling to do what you want, it's not just because they're like that, they have a reason. Well, if they have a reason, who are you to override their reason? Shouldn't they be respected? Shouldn't their opinions be respected? Shouldn't their decisions be respected? Especially in families. It's just a final, I don't want to sound like I'm haranguing you, because that's certainly not appropriate. But reflect on the fact that family members are the ones we're supposed to care for most. They're also the ones that we manipulate the most. Something's wrong. If we really love them, real love is understanding and acceptance. That's what you know that. Real love is understanding and acceptance. Certainly you'd agree that this kind of emotional manipulation or even emotional blackmail of family members, it's harmful. Think about it. Okay, so here we see this really, really extreme position where Duryodhana says, if you meet with Vidura, he will certainly change your mind, and if you change your mind, I am going to commit suicide. Samayi tvam mrite rajan, samayi tvam mrite, vidurena sukhi bhava, vidurena sukhi, bhokshase prativim kritsnam, bhokshase prativim, kim maya tvam karishyasi, kim maya tvam. So his emotional blackmail continues here. He says, Rajan, O king, mai mrite, if I die, mai mrite, if I am dead, saha tvam, you, vidurena sukhi bhava, you can be happy with Vidura. How is that? If I die, that's okay. You can be happy with Vidura. You love him. You get the idea. You love him so much, your half-brother. And I, your eldest son, you don't care about me at all. So let me die. Who cares? You can just be with your beloved half-brother Vidura. Bhokshase prativim kritsnam. And you will enjoy all the glories of this kingdom. You can enjoy everything. He says, Kim maya tvam karishyasi. It's kind of idiomatic. Kim maya tvam karishyasi. What good am I for you? So Duryodhana, this is part of his emotional manipulation, emotional blackmail, right? He says, I'm your eldest son. You don't care at all about me. I am useless to you. That's kind of the implied meaning here. Kim karishyasi. Maya. What will you do with me? What good am I to you? I am incapable of making you happy. But your half-brother Vidura, let him make you happy, the two of you. Be happy, enjoy the kingdom. So this final comment here. What amazing emotional immaturity. Let's talk for just a moment about emotional immaturity. We all have met people who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever age, so they're well past childhood and early adulthood, and yet they still lack maturity, emotional maturity. Just because you have reached the age of 50 or 60 doesn't mean the person will be emotionally mature. It is sometimes startling how childish a grown adult can be inside. Now, there are dozens or hundreds of reasons for that childishness. It could have to do with their own childhood. It could have to do with their upbringing, their education, any number of reasons that they are childish. But we should recognize when a grown adult is behaving in a childish way. We should understand that. That's crucial. Here's the problem. If you expect a child to act like an adult, you've made a big mistake, and you're not going to be very effective in dealing with that child. That child is going to behave like a child because that's who they are. Well, what about the 60-year-old who is emotionally like a 12-year-old? That's who they are. Do you have any choice over that? Can you make the 12-year-old act like a 50-year-old? No. Can you make the 60-year-old who's like a 12-year-old inside, can you make them behave like a rational, mature adult? No. And here's the thing. If you expect the child to act like an adult, you're making a mistake. If you expect that emotionally immature adult to behave like a rational, mature adult, you're the one making the mistake. You have an unrealistic expectation. I'm not saying you should ignore the immaturity. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying you will be more effective dealing with that person if you acknowledge the fact that this is who they are emotionally immature. I'm not saying you just ignore the immaturity, but rather you have to deal with it. You'll be more skillful in dealing with it if you acknowledge, okay, this is an emotionally immature person. Let me accept that. Let me deal with that. So here, Duryodhana is one of those incredibly emotionally immature people. He's acting like a little child. You can imagine a 3-year-old who's having a temper tantrum. And I'm told that some children have done this. I don't know much about raising children, but I think one of the tricks, they say, "Mommy, if you don't give me this, I'm going to hold my breath until I die." Okay? Of course, Mom can say, "Okay, go ahead, try." Mom knows very well. But Duryodhana here is acting as foolishly as that 3-year-old, but Duryodhana is capable of following through on his threat. So it certainly is no laughing matter. Now we go back to the narrator, who is Vaishampayana, who is narrating the story to King Janamejaya. Vaishampayano vacha, Vaishampayano Artavakyam tu tattasya, Artavakyam tu tat Pranayoktam nisham yasaha, Pranayoktam nisham Dhritarashtra bravit preshyan, Dhritarashtra bravit Duryodhana mate sthitaha, Duryodhana mate. Look at the second line. Pranayoktam nishamya saha. Saha, he. Dhritarashtra nishamya, having heard. Having heard what? In the first line, artavakyam. Having heard the statement of great distress. Artavakyam. Having heard Duryodhana's distress, tattasya, that statement of great distress of Duryodhana, which is pranaya uktam, which is uttered. There's a certain tone of voice. Here, the expression pranaya uktam, it's not just said, but it's said in a certain manner, like with a certain kind of begging quality or pleading quality. So it's said, and this is in emotional manipulation. We're talking about emotional manipulation of family members. More often than not, that goes on in your tone of voice that you might use with other family members. There's a lot that goes on, not in just what you say, but how you say it. A lot to reflect on. This, again, that kind of subtle emotional manipulation that goes on in families. It's harmful. It's an effort to manipulate others. It's a kind of a subtle rejection of others. It causes conflict. It causes pain. Anyway, enough said. So here, Saha Dhritarashtra nishamya, having heard this distressing statement of Duryodhana, hearing your own son say, I'm going to kill myself, that's a pretty big thing. So what would Dhritarashtra's response be? Well, Vaishampayana narrating. Vaishampayana, remember, is the student of Vyasa who is narrating the story. And Vaishampayana says that what did Dhritarashtra do? Dhritarashtra abravrit. Abravrit, he said. He said to whom? Preshyan, his servants. What did he tell his servants? He said, Duryodhana mate stitaha. Actually, what he said is going to be told in the next verse. But according to Vaishampayana here, Dhritarashtra is stitaha, he is established, Duryodhana mate, literally established in the thinking of Duryodhana. That's the literal meaning. Established in the thinking of Duryodhana means influenced by what Duryodhana is feeling. So he has been influenced by Duryodhana's statement of distress. How could he not be? And then Dhritarashtra gives instructions to his servants. What instructions? Dhritarashtra vacha, Dhritarashtra vacha. Stuna sahas. Stuna sahasra brihatim, stuna sahasra brihat, shatadvaram sabham mama, shatadvaram sabham, manoramam darshaniyam, manoramam ashu kurvantu shilpinaha, ashu kurvantu shilpinaha. This is Dhritarashtra's instructions to his servants who were nearby. Look at the last line. Ashu kurvantu shilpinaha. Ashu, quickly. Kurvantu, make them, make them do. Who? Shilpinaha. Make the architects. make the kurvantu shilpinaha, make the architects build, go to the second line, shatadwaram sabham mama. Make them build a sabha, a hall. Go to the architects and make them build a sabha, a big hall, a hall for the sake of dice playing, right? This is the idea. Make them build a hall for the sake of the dice game to be held between Yudhishthira and Shakuni. But that hall should be what? Shatadwaram. It should have 100 doors. Not an ordinary hall, but a grand hall. For the sake of the dice game, a grand hall having 100 doors, and stuna sahasraihi, and 1,000 pillars. Stuna means pillar. So 1,000 pillars or columns and 100 doors. Brihatim, it should be vast. A vast hall with 100 doors and 1,000 pillars. Build it, mama, for me. You build that hall for me. That hall should be manoramam, very pleasing to see, darshaniyam, very beautiful, very pleasing. So quickly, he tells his servants, go and make the Shilpis build this hall. So what has happened? So Duryodhana's emotional blackmail has been 100% successful. Dhritarashtra has been completely incapacitated by his son's emotional blackmail. That shows Dhritarashtra's weakness, his incapacity to deal with his son in a proper way. Many of you have raised children, and I'm sure one of the most difficult things of being a parent is what to do when your son or daughter is in a bad mood and arguing with you. I've never had to deal with that personally. I know you have. And that must be one of the most difficult and challenging things of parenting. That son or daughter you have loved and cared for so much, but that son and daughter can be angry at you, can be frustrated with you, can be irritated by you, and they can express it. And then the parent requires tremendous patience and tremendous skill in dealing with that. That's life. I mean, you know this. I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know. It takes tremendous patience and skill to deal with that. You also know that it's inevitable. What child isn't going to be in a bad mood now and then? What child isn't going to get disappointed or irritated from time to time? It's normal, a normal part of childhood or even early adulthood, as you know. It's normal for children to behave like this. It's up to the parents having sufficient skill and patience to deal with that. Unfortunately, Dhritarashtra has neither the skill nor the patience to deal with his son Duryodhana, so immediately he gives in, which is a huge mistake because he also knows it's adharmic. Duryodhana knows it's the wrong thing to do, and Dhritarashtra also, in his heart, he knows it's the wrong thing to do, but he is subject to this emotional manipulation. So the narrator continues, Vaishampayana vacha, Vaishampayana Duryodhanasya shantyartam, Duryodhanasya shantyartam, iti nishchitya bhumipaha, iti nishchitya Dhritarashtra maharaja, Dhritarashtra maharaja, prahinod viduraya vai, prahinod viduraya. Vaishampayana, the narrator, says, second line, iti nishchitya bhumipaha. Bhumipa, another word for king. The king, Dhritarashtra, Bhumipa, what did he do? Nishchitya, having decided, having made this decision to go ahead and building the hall for the dice means he's agreed to Shakuni's plan. What is Shakuni's plan? Yudhishthira will be summoned for a dice game. Yudhishthira is very fond of dice. We discussed that in the last class. He has a weakness, or even in modern language, we might call it a gambling addiction, in spite of his tremendous good qualities. We discussed that Yudhishthira, in spite of his outstanding qualities and nature, he has a weakness for gambling. But as we said before, he has no skill in gambling. So this is Shakuni's plot, and Dhritarashtra has agreed to this plot. So Bhumipaha, King Dhritarashtra, Nishchitya, having made this decision, having agreed to Shakuni's plot, iti, in this way, Duryodhanasya shantyartam. He made this decision, why? Shanti artam, for the sake of causing peace. For whom? Duryodhanasya. For the sake of calming Duryodhana down. For the sake of quelling Duryodhana's anguish. Because certainly what he spoke, I'll kill myself, that is spoken out of anguish. So his father, making a mistake. That is, instead of dealing with his son skillfully and patiently, he just gives in immediately. And for the sake of quelling his son's anger, he says, go ahead and we will accept Shakuni's plan. And therefore, Maharaja, here the narrator, Vaishampayana, addresses King Janamejaya, the one he's narrating this to. He says, Maharaja, O King Janamejaya, Dhritarashtra prahinot. Dhritarashtra summoned. Prahinot. Who did he summon? Viduraya. He summoned Vidura. Wait a minute. He made the decision first, and now he's summoning Vidura? What's going on? I mean, shouldn't he have met Vidura first and then made the decision? Well, something is backwards here. And the narrator, Vaishampayana, explains. Aprishtva viduram hyasya, aprishtva viduram hyasya, nasid kaschid vinishchayaha, nasid kaschid vinishchay, dyuta doshanscha janansa, dyuta doshanscha janan, putra snehara krishyata, putra snehara krishyata. I just want to see where we are here. Oh gosh, lots to go. So, aprishtva. So, why did Dhritarashtra do this? That is, he made the decision, and now he's calling his half-brother for advice, which is all backwards. Why? Because aprishtva viduram, without asking Vidura, asya na asit kaschit vinishchayaha. Kaschit vinishchaya, any decision, asya nasit, he couldn't make. Dhritarashtra could not make any decision without asking Vidura. So Dhritarashtra, being blind, was highly dependent on others in many regards. Certainly just to walk around the palace, Dhritarashtra would have been dependent. But Dhritarashtra was also highly dependent on his half-brother Vidura, and that's a good thing. So the narrator, Vaishampayana, says that Dhritarashtra could not make any decision without first asking Vidura. Of course, he's already made the decision, which is the problem here. But he explains, very nice here, Dyuta doshanscha janan saha. That saha, he, Dhritarashtra, dyuta doshan, janan, knowing knowing dyuta dosha, knowing how bad it is to have this dice game, knowing the harmful nature of this dice game, knowing the unethical nature of this dice game. But putra snehat akrishyata. He was akrishyata. He was pulled, influenced by what? Putra snehat. By his affection for his son. There's something really important being said here. So it says that why did Dhritarashtra make the decision first and then call his advisor? Because he's all confused. Dhritarashtra is confused. He's not doing things in his normal way. Why? He says that Janan, even though he knew how bad it was to play the dice game, how wrong it would be to allow this dice game to take place, putra snehat, due to his affection or attachment for his son, he was akrishyata, he was pulled. This word sneha, some of you have heard me explain this before. Sneha we usually translate as love. So putra sneha, his love for his son. But 2 minutes of Sanskrit, you must know this, that the root from which sneha comes is snih. Snih in a dictionary has 2 primary meanings, and love is the second meaning. What is the first meaning? To stick. So if you say in Sanskrit, snihyami tvayi, if you say, I love you, snihyami tvayi, that's how you, if you can learn that. People like to know how to say, I love you in as many languages as they can. So here's one more language for you. So tvayi snihyami can mean I love you. It can equally mean I stick to you. Showing that sticky nature of attachment. Not love. That's attachment. I stick to you. I depend on you. I depend on you for my emotional well-being. Usually when those words are spoken, I love you, what does it mean? I love you means I depend on you for my emotional well-being. Isn't that often what it means? Not always. Often. I depend on you for my emotional well-being. That's not love, that's attachment. And that's what the word sneha means here. So putra snehat, due to his attachment to his son, his emotional dependence on his son, his thinking has been disturbed. Notice he says dyuta doshan janan, knowing, janan, knowing. Knowing is something you do with your intellect. Intellectually knowing that the dice game is a bad idea, what do his emotions lead him to do? The wrong thing. This is the classic conflict between intellect and emotions, between head and heart. Classic conflict. Your intellect is capable of discerning right from wrong, dharma from adharma. The role of your intellect is to discern what is the right thing to do. Your emotions are blind when it comes to dharma. You feel what you feel, whether it's dharmic or not. And just to illustrate that with a very simple example, suppose your doctor says, no more sweets for you. You get it, right? You understand. Oh, if I eat more sweets, I'm going to get sick. You understand that intellectually. But then when you see the sweets, how do you feel? What is your you feel so emotionally attracted. You still feel attraction for the sweet. Why? Your emotions are blind to dharma and adharma. Your intellect knows what is right and what is wrong. Your emotions don't know. You feel what you feel. Emotions don't know the difference between right and wrong. Emotions don't have that power of discernment. Your intellect has the power of discernment, which means, and we've had this discussion on other occasions, which means decisions must always be made governed by the intellect, buddhi. But what happens is decision-making is influenced by our emotions. Now, this is tricky. We cannot say that you should ignore your emotions when making decisions, because someone who ignores anything when they're making a decision is not making the best possible decision. If you're going to make a decision, you should reflect on all the factors involved. Your emotions are certainly a factor involved. Your emotions and emotions of others. So emotions must always be considered in any decision-making process, but the ultimate decision must be made by your intellect, not by your emotions. Why? The intellect can discern dharma from adharma. Your emotions cannot discern dharma from adharma. So bottom line, intellect should consider the emotions, but then do the right thing. But what happens to Dhritarashtra? He says, Dyuta doshan janan, even though he knows that allowing the dice game is a wrong thing to do, but even then, putra snehat, because of his attachment to his son, akrishyata, he is dragged in the wrong direction. He is compelled to make the wrong decision. And what are the consequences? Well, what plays out? The whole this is the beginning of the whole setup for the battle that forms the central part of the Mahabharata, the battle between the Kauravas and Pandavas. How did that all begin? With the dice game. And that's what we're seeing the build up to. All right, back to the story. Vidurovacha. Meanwhile, back in the palace, Vidura arrives. And what does he say? Nabhinandami te rajan, nabhinandami te rajan. Vyavasayamimam prabho, vyavasayamimam. Putrar bhedo yatha nasyad, putrar bhedo yatha nasyad. Dyuta hetos tata kuru, dyuta hetos tata. So, half-brother Vidura, the wise one, arrives and he says, Na abhinandami te rajan vyavasayam imam prabho. Hey Rajan, O king, hey Prabho, O master, O Lord, na abhinandami, I do not approve. I am not pleased. Te, with your vyavasayam, with your decision. Imam vyavasayam, with this decision, te of yours, with this decision, na abhinandami. I'm not pleased with it. I don't agree with it at all. And he says, why? He says, yatha putra bhedaihi, yatha putraihi bhedaha nasyat. The manner in which you can avoid a conflict between sons. Putraihi bheda. Bheda here, literally difference, but in this context it means conflict. A conflict between sons or between cousins. So a conflict between cousins, should Dhritarashtra cause conflict between cousins or prevent conflict between cousins? So that's the point that Vidura makes here. He says, yatha, the manner in which nasyat, there would not be any bheda, conflict, putraihi, among sons, among cousins. Tata, in that conflict which is dyuta hetoho, conflict due to this dice game. The conflict due to dice game, whatever you can do to prevent that conflict between cousins due to the dice game, tata, in that manner, kuru, you should do. Whatever you can do to prevent conflict between the cousins, the kind of conflict that would inevitably arise due to this dice game, that's what you should do, king, which means you shouldn't allow the dice game, you should deny the dice game. What does Dhritarashtra say? Remember, he's already made his decision. A little awkward. Dhritarashtra vacha Dhritarashtra Kshatta putreshu putrairme Kshatta putreshu putra Kalaho na bhavishyati Kalaho na bhavishyati Devi deva prasaram naha Devi deva prasaram na Karishyanti na samshayaha Karishyanti. So Dhritarashtra has already made his decision. And his trusted advisor says, you made the wrong decision. What would he do? You've seen this, those of you who work in corporations and business places, you tell your boss, you made a mistake. Of course, you have to say it in a very politically correct way. Hey boss, you blew it. What will your boss say? Your boss has already done it. And even if your boss knows what you're saying is true, is your boss going to say, you're right? Doubtful. What will your boss do? We have a nice word in American English. It's called rationalization. Rationalization means you make excuses for your mistakes. Instead of admitting your mistakes, instead of learning from your mistakes, you try to establish that they weren't mistakes. They were. You knew they were mistakes, but you try to convince yourself and the other person that that's not a mistake. We call that rationalization, making excuses for your mistakes, and that's exactly what Dhritarashtra does. He says, Kshattaha, O Vidura, O son of the maid, putreshu putraihi me kalaha. Kalaha. Kalaha, conflict. Kalaha na bhavishyati. There will be no conflict between what? Putreshu putraihi me. There will be no conflict between my sons and my sons. There will be no conflict between my sons, Duryodhana, and the other 99, remember? Duryodhana and the other 99, and the 5 sons of Pandu. There will be no conflict between them. How does he know? So Dhritarashtra insists that it is impossible. There will be no conflict between my sons and the sons of Pandu. Why? Here comes the rationalization. Nice thing about that word rationalization is it's irrational. Rationalization means you take the irrational and you try to make it sound reasonable. But it's not reasonable at all. And that's what he's doing here, is something very irrational. He says, this is Dhritarashtra's excuse. Divi devaha prasadam naha. Divi devaha, the gods in heaven, prasadam naha karishyanti, will bless us. The gods in heaven will bless us. Nasamshaya, without doubt. The gods in heaven will bless us. This is why he knows that there'll be no conflict because of the dice game. Why? The gods in heaven will bless us. My gosh, how utterly naive. If you think you can make a mistake and the gods in heaven will take care of it. But the Dalai Lama had made exactly this statement recently. A few weeks ago, he was asked about all this terrorism. And apparently a reporter asked the Dalai Lama, for all of this terrorism, should we pray to God to bless us and remove this threat of terrorism? The Dalai Lama responded, do you know, it's a problem that we created. If it's a problem that we created, should we really pray to God to fix it? Terrorism is a problem we created. According to Dalai Lama, if we made the mess, we better be ready to clean it up. That's his point. This is the, I think I want to stop here. This is the beginning of, Dhritarashtra goes on for several verses here of rationalization, and he's going to reveal his philosophy about fate. But one of the central themes in the entire Mahabharata is a debate about, is there such a thing as fate? Are things predestined? Or are things due to the law of karma? Or is everything in our hands? This very complex debate between free will, karma, and destiny is one of the themes that runs the entire length of the Mahabharata, this debate, and we're going to begin to get into that debate in the next class. We'll pause here and continue next week. Some announcements. Tomorrow, Sunday, we have our children's program at 11 o'clock. We have at 5 o'clock the mindful awareness meditation session at 5. And at 6:15, instead of the question and answer satsang, tomorrow at 6:15 I'll conduct an advanced meditation session, nididhyasana. So if you are an experienced meditator and have some Vedanta, please come join us 6:15 for meditation, no question answer. I have a special request for today. It is a beautiful day outside, it's sunny, it's relatively warm, and we got lots of leaves that need raking, and we have lots of rakes. We have lots of leaves, lots of rakes, lots of food to give you when you're done, and lots of volunteers. And seriously, we weren't able to get anything much done last week. We have a lot of leaves to be raked. Please stay back and help. We could use 20 or 30 of you. Really, you go out there, be fun, you get a lot done, you come in and have a nice lunch. So if you can, please stay back and help with the raking. We really need a lot of help today. Thank you. Library will be open after class. We'll conclude with our prayers. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat.